Hey, what's up everyone? Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids, doing a head-to-head comparison today of two knives from Mora. We have the Mora 2000 and then the Mora Bushcraft Orange. And essentially what you have here is a very basic knife and then the very basic knife with some extra bells and whistles. This one's going to run you around $48. So $48, you're getting the knife, the sheath, the fire steel, the sharpener, a couple different options as far as your loop or attachment system that you're going to put on your belt. This one's going to run you about $32, and I've got links to both of these in the description box below. So if you want to pick up one of these, you can certainly just click on the link, and you'll be supporting the Everyday Tactical Vids channel. So take a look real quick here at this sheath, Mora 2000. So it's got this plastic sheath with a leather belt loop. Very simple, nothing too fancy, but does get the job done. Take the knife out here. You can see it's a very interesting grind on this. So you've got basically one edge here, and then they kind of have a divot here on this side. And yeah, I mean, it's very unique. The main thing that jumped out to me was less about the grind on this, which is very sharp, as I almost cut myself there. It's really the handle size, which for me is a very, very comfortable size. Sometimes you get a knife that's just too small. Sometimes you get a knife that's too big and clunky, but this one seems to be just about right for me. So kind of a utility, outdoor, camping blade, lots of different options, lots of different ways you could use this one. Some of the details. So 4.3 inches for your blade length. Your blade thickness is 0.1 inch. And let's see, your total length 8.8 inches, and your weight is 5 ounces. They do know that this is made in Sweden from what they call their high quality Sandvik stainless steel. And yeah, that's kind of the rundown of that. So you kind of have a darker olive drab here, and then more like a little bit more like almost a lime, but closer to a lime color there. And then it does click into the sheath. You can actually hear it. Once it gets down to a certain point, it'll click over that little ridge there. So that clicks into place. And this rides nicely on a belt. Again, nothing too fancy about this. It's going to run you around $32. Basic knife, but it's going to get the job done. And then over here, I guess I can, yeah, I just leave them both out. For the Bushcraft in orange, and the reason I got this is because a lot of people have seen the Bushcraft black, so I want to just mix it up a little bit. So with this one, you do get a fire steel included. You do get the sharpener included. On the back here, I'll show you. I chose the one that you can basically loop over your belt, but you can get one that's a closed loop as well. I don't care for that one as much. It does swivel a bit, like so. It is plastic. It's nothing fancy as far as, you know, what the actual material is, but again, the fire steel and the sharpener adds in some value. And then take the knife out, and that's what that actually looks like. You can see a little bit of grime on the blade down there. It is all orange, so even though this is orange and black, this the actual handle is all orange there. All right, let me give you some specs on this one. Your blade thickness 0.125, so it is a little bit thicker than the 2000. Your blade length 4.3 inches, your total length 9.1, again a little bit longer, and your net weight is 7.5 ounces. Now they do note that you have the fire starter that yields what they say 7,000 strikes and produces 3,000 degree sparks. So again, you know, your net gain is going to be in the style of the knife, maybe if you prefer it, but also what you're getting out of the sheath system as well. I will say that this one also is very, very comfortable. The handle, you do have a 90-degree spine. I mean, as soon as you pick it up, you can feel that. Let's double check the 2000. Nope, that's going to be rounded, it feels like. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a sharp enough edge to actually get a spark off that. And again, this is not made to be necessarily a survival knife, but I thought, you know, I've seen this one and I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, but I wanted to mix it up a little bit. And you can see the profile is a bit different there, how it is, and this the orange Bushcraft is definitely thicker. So two knives I was interested in taking out and reviewing and testing out, so let's get them outside and see what we think about them. So here's a look at the Bushcraft knife and what it actually looks like on the sheath. You can see that this does pivot, which is nice. So if you're, you know, moving your leg or climbing over something, this will move a little bit. And I do want to note that when you put it on your belt, see if I can do this, there we go. There's kind of a lip here, and the way it locks in, so it's not just sliding over and easily going to pop off. The way it actually rests on your belt, it's very, very secure. And obviously, you know, even when it's on your belt, very easy to take the knife out. So let me put this back on to show you that. So the knife's in there. Here's a look at the Mora 2000, and with that leather loop, you're going to have a little bit more mobility even than the plastic hook or loop from the bushcraft knife. So this will still move nice and freely and easy to take the knife out, and it can go in either way. So you can see the blade is actually pointing back now. That'll lock in, and depending on how you run it on your left side or right side, the blade will still lock in pointing toward the front or toward the back, so you can switch it around and always be ready to draw your blade out whatever way you want to. Okay, what we're going to do here first is test out both the knives on this piece of wood making a feather stick. You've got some different grinds and you got some different handles, so we'll just see how the knives cut and also what the degree of comfort is. So let's try the 2000 first. And if you've ever used a Mora, you're going to know they come very, very sharp. I've never had a Mora that I've received that wasn't very sharp right out of the box, right from the factory. So I'm not surprised at how this one's cutting. The thing I like so far about this handle, not just now, but having just been messing around with this knife a little bit before, is that you can move your hand kind of back and forward on the handle, and it's got just a nice big swell there. So again, for me with large size hands, that works really nicely. So you can see this thing definitely, like most Mora knives, it's going to do some great work in feather sticks and things like that. All right, let's try the other knife. Exact same piece of wood. So I've used the Bushcraft Black before, and having held this knife, I would say both the handles are comfortable, but I do like the 2000 even more than I like this. Now, there are some things about the 2000. I do think the grind is not as helpful for doing something like this. But again, the advantage is that the handle is a little bit more comfortable. This thing's not uncomfortable by any means, but I do think the 2000 is more comfortable. We will see soon that a fire steel is not going to work on the 2000, I don't think, because I don't think that spine is steep enough, but it will definitely work on this knife. All right, so we're going to use the fire steel. This is actually probably the better feather stick than this one. Those are finer feathers, so we're going to try the 2000 with this one and then the Bushcraft with this one. So we'll see how this, we'll just give it a shot first to see if it even gets any sparks off it. Let me scrape some of this black coating off real quick, which you can probably already see. That's not an issue for this knife, but with the 2000, I don't think we're going to get any sparks whatsoever. Now you can always use the blade in an emergency situation, but I definitely don't want to do that. I think we've proven our point pretty effectively here. When I get out here toward the tip, you start to feel a little bit of flex, so I don't want to do that and snap the tip off. But even out here, it's pretty much, it's a little bit less wide than back here, but it's definitely still rounded, so. I can just get this locked in here. So there's that. Definitely able to get a spark off the Bushcraft, not so much on the 2000. Now the next thing I want to show here is if I wanted to cut this tree down, which is probably 4 to 6 inches across, and I didn't have an axe or anything, rather than trying to chop with a knife, holding it like this and doing that, that's going to take forever with either of these knives. They're just not made for that. So what you can do is you can kind of baton a wedge out and work your way around until you can push the tree down. Now I'm not going to take the tree down totally, but just to show you what that would look like with these two different knives. And even this baton that I have is pretty rotted. But you can see, even with a small knife, you can still get some of these chunks out of a tree. Now that's just a small wedge. But doing that a bunch of times, and you'll so I'm already in at probably 1/4 of an inch to the tree. So you can see even with the Mora 2000, which is pretty thin, you can still do that work. So let's show you what it looks like with the Bushcrafter now. I can tell you already that the Scandi grind on this one, it just bites into the wood much more effectively. So the feather sticks, and even for this, it works really, really nicely. As you're probably not surprised if you know anything about different grinds on different knives, the Scandi grind is just, it bites into wood really effectively. So I would definitely, I would say this one with less work because of its thickness, and the grind was able to get into that tree pretty effectively. All right, now I know this is probably going to really upset some people, but in this video testing out these knives, I'm not going to baton. What? 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 Now the reason I'm not going to baton is not because I think it's stupid or pointless. I have been in the woods where I'm like, I really need to get some dry wood, and so I'm going to baton some wood to get into that inner wood that's not wet like the rest of the woods is. So I don't think it's a bad thing to do. I just think I do it so much. A lot of people who review knives do it. So I just want to mix it up here. So what we're going to do instead of that is to kind of cut some notches into some wood to show you how these two knives compare when it comes to doing some of that, again, more detail work, which is really what these knives are built for. So I batoned with the Mora Companion. I batoned with my Light My Fire knife from Mora, and both of them do the job as long as you don't get huge pieces of wood. So I'm not really concerned if these could baton. It's just about the size of the wood you use and how it compares to the strength of the knife. Smaller pieces of wood, I'm sure these guys would do fine. Larger pieces of wood, not as much. You know, if you use a huge piece of wood, you might break the knife. But again, I want to use the knives for things I'd probably be more likely to use them for, which is more detail work, like feather sticking, or what you're about to see, cutting some notches, like perhaps if I were going to be making a trap, right? Let's do that. So let's work on putting a notch into this piece of wood. If you've never cut a notch into a piece of wood for like a trap or anything, I usually like to get it started, and then the real goal is to push down and then out, because it seems to get, you know, a better, more of that steep angle that you're eventually going to look for if you're going to put a trap trigger or something in there. So down and then out, and then eventually what you got to do is kind of cut back, get all the scrap out, and then keep going down and out, down and out, down and out, down and out. What I can tell you just using this knife is that I can definitely feel some flex in the blade. So that's just something to be aware of when you think about, you know, purchasing a knife. What are you going to be using it for? How aggressively do you need to use it? If you're trying to think like this is a one-tool option, I don't think either of these knives are really built for that. But definitely more flex in this blade than in the Bushcraft knife. So this gets the job done pretty quickly, pretty effectively. You can see what our notch looks like right there. Let's swap to the other knife now. All right, so now with the Scandi grind, same piece of wood, so it's not like I got a different piece of wood or a softer piece of wood. One thing I can tell you is that the steep spine on this Bushcrafter is it's going to be great for throwing your sparks for a fire steel, but pushing with your thumb down on it definitely takes a toll a lot more than with the 2000. But this one, as I was saying before, like that pushing down and then straight down and then kind of rolling it out, this one just gets the job done really. I mean, you can feel it. You might even be able to hear it as it kind of slices into the wood. Yeah, I don't know if you can pick it up on camera, but I can literally hear the difference in how this thing cuts compared to the 2000. And so there's that notch. All right, let's wrap up the review now talking about these two knives from Mora. You can probably tell just by how I talked about the two knives that I do like this one more. I don't think the 2000 is a bad knife. It's a good knife. It's just a bit thin. It doesn't have that sharp spine like I would want it to have. I think the biggest win of this one is the handle. I think this handle is actually more comfortable than this handle. So this one, if they took this handle and put it on this knife, I think that could be a major, major win. I don't think this handle is bad. Like if this was getting like an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10, I'd give this like a 6 or a 7. So it's not a huge, huge difference, but I do think that handle is more comfortable. This knife, I would definitely say, is a good like companion knife when it comes to some basic tasks in the woods, or probably like a utility knife around the house or around the yard. If I were gonna go into the woods, I would definitely choose something like this or a companion, something very similar to this, just because of the advantages I think we've already seen. Now, your price point, you're gonna be paying more for this than you are for this. If you don't need the fire steel, but you like this knife, then you can get something like a companion or one of the heavy duty companions. Tons of different options for Mora out there. But again, I saw these knives a long time ago and thought, I'd love to see, you know, kind of how these match up head to head. And I would say one of the other big advantages for this one, even though the handle on this one's not as comfortable as this one, is that if you drop this in the woods, this is gonna be a lot easier to find just because of the brightness of the handle. So bottom line, I have yet to own a Mora knife that I haven't said that's a good knife. I've never gotten a Mora that I said that's a piece of junk. Everything they seem to make is really, really good. Some people like certain things about different knives, which I get, but nonetheless, I have yet to own a Mora that I didn't like, particularly when I used it for the task for which it was designed. I got links to both of these knives down in the description box. If you want to head over to Amazon to pick up one or both or a different Mora, I've got links down there for all those options. And doing so will help support the Everyday Tactical Vids channel. So thanks in advance if you do decide to use those links. As always, more videos are coming soon. Please subscribe to Everyday Tactical Vids if you haven't done so already, and take care.